Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education, featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
And welcome back to the Prepped and Polished podcast. This is your host, Alexis Avila. Welcome back. Be sure to join our Prepped and Polished community on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram. Just type Prepped and Polished and you'll find us. And on the front page of our website, you can sign up for our free ACT essay video course. And also, if you need tutoring, you can always call us 781-753-9951 or email us at info@preppedandpolished.com. Have a question or reaction during or after the podcast today? Submit your question to radio@preppedandpolished.com. Let's get to today's guest. Today on episode 142, I'm talking to Marc Hoberman, director and founder of Grade Success, Inc. Marc is a keynote speaker, seminar leader, consultant, and author, and has trained students, teachers, and corporate executives nationally through a variety of personal improvement and training methods. As a freelance writer for New York Parents Metro magazine, Marc has shared his wealth of educational expertise with thousands of parents each year. From the classroom to the boardroom, Marc continues his mission to help people realize their full potential. On today's episode, Marc gives us his best tips for how students can thrive at school and become better students. So let's get to today's guest. It's episode 142. With Marc Hoberman. So Marc, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. How are you doing today?
Good, Alexis. My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's learn a little bit about your background first and perhaps focus on a few pivotal moments that brings you to where you are today as founder and director of Grade Success, Inc.
Okay, so basically, I've been teaching for 32 years. I started out in the middle school, grades 6, 7, and 8 in Bronx, New York. Tough school, tough area, but a great training ground. Great camaraderie with people. Moved to the high school setting, John F. Kennedy High School, about 10 years after that. And now I'm in my 33rd year, starting next week, in Rockland County, New York, where I've been for 20 years, which has been really great because it's 5 minutes from where I live. No more carpooling, so to speak. And, developed the tutoring business and some other, some camp consulting things and a lot of educational consulting with parents. So been busy with a lot of that through the years.
That's awesome. And tell us about Grade Success, Inc. and your website. What types of services do you provide and what will we find on the website?
Okay. So with Grade Success, we do everything from kindergarten up to people in college, people who do GREs, who do, we even do, an arm that does LSATs. We do a lot of college counseling where we do the college search. I have an expert who does that, and I do the essays. But, we do, a lot of what I do is SAT and ACT prep, but a lot of what I'm doing more of now is a lot of parent consulting. They've read some of my articles. They've heard me speak. I speak at PTA meetings. I've done radio podcasts such as this and radio shows. And, they really need help navigating some of the difficulties they have. It's much more stressful now than it was certainly when I went to school. And, so I help with that. I do a lot of study skills, anything in the realms of education, speed reading, study skills techniques, note-taking, we do it.
And give us an example of the type of consulting that you would give to parents.
So sometimes parents, have trouble. If you're the parent, you're the enemy, I tell them. I own a tutoring agency. I did not tutor my own children because I tried once for half an hour and I said to my wife, one of us is going to kill the other one, just going to let you know ahead of time. So I actually own a tutoring agency and had to pay for my son to go to another English specialist, even though I'm an English and reading specialist. So, I teach the parents that, sometimes you're too emotionally involved. You need an outsider. You need help having them organize themselves. And, it's just a matter of finding their learning modality. It's not the same as, when you and I went to school, it was, this is how you learn, the way the teacher teaches. It's really not the way kids learn. Certainly not with technology and other things. So it's just finding ways to enhance the children's strengths, build up on their weaknesses, and make them strengths.
That's amazing. So Let's jump into some study skills tips for teens. So, for example, do you believe in using a reward system?
I sort of do,
Okay.
but it's a little bit of an oxymoron, so to speak, because I say to parents, I'm not going to let him play PlayStation. And I said, well, how long does he want to play for? She said, an hour. I said, you're not going to let him play for an hour. Let him play for an hour and a half. But here it is. You have homework to do, and you ask them first, how long do you want to play for an hour? That's not nearly enough. Do this, do this, do this. When you're done, let me know. You get an hour and a half. And the kids think, what medication is my parent taking? What happened? Are they, were they taking like space aliens? Because it's the opposite of what they expect. Because parents go into, look, I'm an educator. I go into no mode all the time. I just say no automatically. And then if it's worthy, I'll change my mind. But, we're in no mode too much. And as much as, doing your work in a timely fashion helps, I've told my own sister this. Some people work better. I thrive on last minute. I wouldn't tell anybody else to do it. It gives other people anxiety. It's just what I do, and it works for me. Some people, well, he's up till midnight working, and then he comes home and naps. Well, if he's getting his schoolwork done and he's doing extracurricular activities, and he takes a nap and he's getting his homework done, what's the problem? You want him to go to sleep at 9 o'clock and not get his work done? So at some point, depending upon the age, you do want to get a rhythm. But certainly as they get older, you want to allow them to have their own rhythm. Because a big problem that I've found, Alexis, is in the last 7 to 10 years, certainly the last 5 to 7, I've seen more students who get into college not graduating from that college. Because mom and dad is always telling them, go to bed this, do your work that. They get to school and it's all of a sudden midnight and they're like, I don't know, am I supposed to go to sleep? Am I supposed to go out to a party? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And they've never counseled themselves. They've never been truly responsible for their own education. And I'm not saying take a foot back, but take a step back and start to make it so that, it's like business. The experts in business, and I've had, several consultations with people consulting me, and they said, if you can't leave your business for a week without it falling apart, you have no business. And if you can't leave your child for a week to do his or her own work, then you have no child who can do his own or her own studying.
Wow. Now, how long should students spend on their work at any given time without interruption and before taking a break?
Right. So I've read some articles on this, and I've done my own little research on it with my own students. I don't believe in quantity as much as quality, but I will tell you that studies have shown if someone studies over an hour, usually the absorption rate is much worse anything over the hour without a break. So if you study for 2 hours, I would say you probably wasted 50 minutes because you weren't focusing. What I like to do is between 20 and 30 minutes. I think 20 minutes of studying and then a 5-minute break. However, I want the break to be away from the study area. I want the person's brain to know I am not studying now. Take the anxiety out of it. I'm dealing with students now with more test anxiety than in the history of my, I've owned the company 20 years, but I've been tutoring almost 30. So I want them to take a 5-minute break. And studies have also shown that you don't learn when you study. You learn when you review. So look at the material, read it, try to learn it, take your break, come back, and before you study, again, review what you studied the first 20 minutes, and then go on to something new, which is why I say 20 to 30 minutes, because obviously when you come back after that second break, there's 2 20-minute sections to study. So you're going to have to review a little longer, but you don't learn until you review.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay. So what are some bad study tips, habits that you've seen among today's teens?
Many. So where do I begin? So cramming.
Okay.
It's funny. I've handed out, I learned this when I was in the middle school. I'm handing out a vocab. I have them in desks. Now I do groups, but years ago it was just the lines, the rows. I'm handing out the vocab test. Next week I come in. This was an SAT class I was giving in my school for actually middle schoolers who just, wanted to take a look at we had a week long where we did like college week. And all of a sudden I came in, and the next week to give the vocab, some kids said, could you hand them out on the other side of the room first? Because they were studying 10 minutes before the vocab quiz, and by the time I got to the other side of the room, they forgot. They were studying so rote. Wow. I'm not a big believer in test anxiety. It exists, but I think people give their own test anxiety to themselves because, people study wrong. If you study, it's not fake test anxiety, but you've created it. If you study wrong for 4 hours, a lot of the kids know I studied for 4 hours, and I know when I walk into this test, I won't be able to recall more than 40% of it. That's what creates the anxiety. So taking, improper notes, if you don't take good notes, you go home and you study from bad notes.
Right.
So what do you expect is going to happen? And then you get a low score, and some parents pressure their kids. I've seen this a lot of times too. Your brother got this, your sister got that. I've seen teachers compare siblings, which is obviously wrong, and it becomes this vicious cycle. So anytime you don't study correctly, there's a lot of bad study habits. Laying in bed, very bad. I lay in bed and read when I know I want to go to sleep in 10 minutes. And it doesn't matter what I'm reading, I'm out. I want them in a chair, not the most comfortable chair with 8 cushions, not the most uncomfortable chair. They have to have good lighting. Many of them don't have good lighting. That in and of itself lends itself to almost falling asleep and not being able to focus. So, not having the proper test zone, I like to call it, is what creates these, if I were to give somebody bad study tips, lay down, do your work then, and cram and do it just before you go to sleep. It's got to be timed out properly. There's a time and place for everything, but there has to be a good study zone, and these have to become habits.
Those are some awesome tips and what to avoid. So now, what are some tips you have for students where social media and online technology is getting in the way of their studies?
That is a tough one. So I'm a lover of technology in school for 2 reasons. Okay. One, there's no better learning than having the kids teach you. And most of my kids, even though they're in 9th grade, they teach me. And they laugh when I come in and I say, somebody tagged me in a photo. What the heck does that mean? And I really don't know what it means. I'm not the biggest Facebook. I do it for advertising, but I'm not the biggest Facebook. And then you see their eyes light up when they teach you. And you can, and that's how I want them to learn. That's when I put them in groups. We do a lot of that in the Common Core now, and to learn off of each other. You cannot have a phone go off in my room. For my own kids, they were pretty good in school and pretty good. One's out of college, one's in the Rutgers Honors College. But there's no, if they're doing well and the TV's on, then I'm not going to do the old Lee and Sandra Hoberman. Those are my parents. You can't have the TV on while you're studying. They're getting 95s or whatever. They can have 2 TVs on while they're studying. So, but when it comes to technology, it's terrible because I know people, I've told them, and I've done some educational consulting about this. I say, from what you're telling me, you have to take your child's phone away at night because these people are texting at 2 in the morning and they're zombies. And if you track a lot of these kids, especially in high school, it starts so early. Their early classes, they're much worse than the later. They need the sugar from lunch, 4th or 5th period. Right. So I've spoken to the other teachers and say, how is Johnny doing? How is Maria doing in your class? And I'm getting different answers. And you start to say, is it me? Which it has been before. I've had to, reorganize myself and my teaching methods for certain students. But the technology has definitely gone too far. And there's nothing wrong with the parents saying, when are you studying? This time to this time? I need your cell phone. Well, I have to ask so-and-so a question about the homework. Good, come in and ask me. I'll give it to you. You'll ask them a question. I'll take the phone back. That depends a lot on age. That depends a lot on the relationship with the parent and the student. But it is getting in the way. And you know what? Let them text for 6 hours. You get your homework done, you can text all night long. I wouldn't love it, but we have to start realizing that texting is how they communicate. I mean, I've seen my son text to a friend, and I said, you haven't gotten an answer in 42 texts. How about you call him and ask him the question? He's not getting it. And they look at me like I have 3 heads. We don't call. Well, I'll talk to him when I see him, but the video games, the texting, the Snapchats, they're all over the place. It's very difficult. Different schools have different rules, but I use it all the time. I use something called Remind 101. My kids get a text from me. I say to them, what time you want to be reminded about the homework? They tell me 3:15. I press a button at 3:15 in their house or wherever they are. Their phone goes off and reminds them. That's the kind of technology I want them to use. We use Google Classroom in my classes. We're lucky enough to have a class set of Chromebooks. My kids take notes and type them all the time. They have to upload the lessons all the time. So technology shouldn't be deleted altogether. It needs to be managed properly.
Yeah, that's amazing. So bullying, especially the online bullying, big problem today. Just want to get your tips for how students should handle the bullying, and what is something you don't want to do if a bully is harassing you.
Well, first of all, I do a lot of bullying training in camps in my camp consulting business. And bullying, I don't know if I was oblivious to it when I was younger, but I think it's rampant now. And I think it is because of the online, realm of the online world. First of all, parents, schools, camps, workplace. 2 words: zero tolerance. Okay? Back when I was in 6th grade, 4th grade, the whole thing would be to say, well, how would you like it if he said you sucked at football? Well, I don't go for that question, because the answer could be, well, I'm great at football, so I don't care. I don't care about how the other kid would feel then. Bottom line is, in this classroom, you don't do that. I mean, they must speak, I'm guessing, 60 to 70 different languages, the students in my school. It's a very diverse population. And not often, but sometimes they'll make fun of somebody if he can't get his words out, or they make fun of the accent or the pitch of his or her voice. First of all, I praise in public, and I punish, if you want to call it punish, I like to call it discuss, privately. So I put the person outside and I talk to him privately that way. So when it comes to bullying, it's got to be zero tolerance. Somebody sees it, even a kid, they got to report it, but there has to be, an agreement of anonymity, because no matter how old you are, it becomes tattling versus helping. But there has to be zero tolerance for it. There's a lot of it out there. It's led to suicides, as you know. This is a very, very, very serious matter. But I know people who have written awful things on social media, and whose parents have said, well, boys will be boys, or whatever. I think a school district has to be bold and say, not in our location. You want to run that in your house, that's up to you. And if you want to stop bullying in your house, we can assist you with that. But, your philosophy in your house will not carry over to this location.
Definitely. So what are your top ways of getting an A? Okay,
so the top ways of getting an A, some people work it backwards, and they say, you come into my classroom and you have 100 average. And now all you can do is get it lower. That's not great, because the end of the sentence is, and all you can do is get it lower. I'm not motivated. So the best way to get an A is, I don't believe in A's. I believe in doing the absolute best you can.
Okay.
I was a terrible math student. I own an SAT business. I will not tell you online on the radio what my math SAT score was. I'm still trying to search for someone who got a lower score. I mean, I had a tutor twice a week for geometry. I got a 66 on the geometry regents. That's with a tutor twice a week. I believe in doing the best you can. There are some people, I can't get better. I couldn't get better than 75s. One year I got an 85 in math, but I couldn't do it. But I went for extra help. I did my best. And I had very supportive parents who just said, if this is the best you can do and I see you're working hard, we'll accept that. The best way to get an A is to be in tune with your teacher. Not, what can I do for extra credit? I have kids who have 15 homework assignments and say, what can I do for extra credit? And I almost want to say to them, you can build a time machine, because you're missing 15 homeworks. I don't give you extra credit. That's not fair to the 25 kids who did their homework. What you can do is ask me questions. I didn't get this right and that right. Why not? I'm having trouble focusing. What can you do to help me?
Right.
And I believe in study groups. I believe you step up your game when you are with people who are better at certain things than you are. If I play tennis, I'm okay. But when I play somebody who's a lot better than I am, I get better. So
Right.
I believe in study groups. But to get an A, it's not always easy. Some people are adept at it. Some people get the A and it's really from hard work and it's not natural abilities. And I applaud those efforts. But you have to, even in college, you have to go to the office hours of the professor. You have to meet with the teacher for extra credit. And I know some people say, but I don't like my teacher. No problem. The teacher teaches algebra. Find another algebra teacher. Go to your guidance counselor and learn from that person. Kids learn very well from each other. We've had a lot of success in many of the schools that I've been in. I've been in many schools in my career where the honor society kids have helped each other. I trained people and ran peer mediation in my school district for many years, and I think I was really good at it, but I have to tell you the students were better because the students received the information and respected a peer giving them these strategies even more than they did from me.
Awesome. Marc, you're an author. So tell us some of the books you've written and how we can access them, order them, and a little bit of the background.
Sure. So one of the books is called The Ninth Period, which I'm going to revamp to be Teacher Strategies. That's probably coming out again in January, just a newer edition, which is for secondary school teachers, classroom management, proper lesson planning, managing expectations of parents. But what I'm most proud of and what I've been working on a lot the past year or so and doing a lot of live presentations and radio interviews is my book, which is a memoir. It's Search and Seizure, Overcoming Illness and Adversity. And it tells the story of my move from the age of 16, where I was popular and loving life in Yonkers, New York, very stressful. I moved on 3 weeks' notice. My father expanded his used furniture business to Florida. Now, I had relatives in Florida, cousins and grandparents. But what I also received 3 months after getting there was a diagnosis of epilepsy. And I was behind the wheel of my beautifully used car, but it was a 1977, about 3 years old, Ford Mustang. Gorgeous car, great sound system.
You had one of those?
Yeah, it was great. I had it now. But I was driving that car with my cousin, my female cousin Candace, sitting next to me, visiting my other cousin, her brother Mark, in Gainesville. And I was very incoherent and kept missing the exit. And I'd say 15 feet before the toll booth, I had a grand mal seizure. And if she weren't in the car, I'd probably be dead, although I wasn't going that fast because of the toll booth. But got the diagnosis, and that became a quite depressing, difficult time in my life, away from home from my friends, unable to drive for 6 months. But, you know, my mother came in, and someone gave me a 5-star review on Reader's Favorite Reviews and said, you know, the advice that Marc's mother gave him should be advice that has to be given to all kids with any issues. And she said, look, you're a good-looking boy, you're funny, you're intelligent, and you know what else? You're an epileptic. And you're going to manage this, and we're going to get you the right medication, and this is going to keep you grounded. So the main mantra of my book and message to parents and to teens is I didn't let my illness define me. I became who I am because of my illness, not in spite of my illness. And I did things that, you know, I'm going to say a word that, you know, I don't know how familiar you'll be with this word. I don't know how old you are, but I know how old I am. I had to go in a library, and I did a lot of microfiche reading. And when I say that in school and explain it to them, they ask me what a microfiche is. And it's not a microfiche. So it took me, you know, probably 2 weeks of research and looking in books at the age of 16 and a half. What now you could do in 2 hours. I mean, I'm part of epilepsy Facebook groups. I've talked to parents, you know, with kids. And I'll tell you that I'm 54 years old, and I was diagnosed at 16. And until last year, I don't think 10 people knew about it. I was, thank God, I was not controlled, and I was not without seizures at all in Florida. We did not have good doctors there.
Right.
Met a doctor that changed my life, Eli Goldenson, Columbia Presbyterian, gave me a pill. The day I took that pill, I never had a seizure, never had a grand mal. And, you know, I have to tell you, nobody knew for 2 reasons. I'd like to lie to you and say, well, I was controlled, that's the reason. That wasn't the reason. Even though I'm an educator and supposed to be an adult and mature, there was a stigma attached. There was an embarrassment that shouldn't have been there. There was a shame that should not have been there, but it was. And about, I want to say a year and a half ago, my son was diagnosed with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and also had some skin issues and was getting very depressed, lost some weight. And we looked for doctors, and no stone was left unturned, but my wife said to me, you know, how come you're handling this so calmly? I said, I guess it's because I've gone through it. And then a light bulb went off. You know, I was able to calm him down and manage his expectations and my wife's. And I said, you know, if I could do this for them, I'm a teacher, I need to do this for others. So I had started the book years before and just put it to the side, but then I finished it. And I created a Common Core curriculum for 9th grade for it. I bought 44 books as a gift to my students, taught the book over the course of a week and a half. It's a short book. It's a very fast read, but it's had some sadness to it. It's got a lot of humor. my parents did everything right medically they should do, but emotionally they did not handle the situation well. In front of me they did, but I heard things behind closed doors that were disturbing. And this really helps people, and it's not just for, hey, if you have epilepsy, your son has epilepsy,
right,
go get the book. This is for obesity, asthma, bullying, anything like
Struggles.
that. Yes, and you have to embrace your problems, and you have to,
definitely.
you have to embrace your reality, and then grow from it. And nothing was better than it was received very well. The kids were amazed. First of all, they'd never had the author in front of them when they taught a book before, so that was something new to them. But they were so respectful about it. People who bought the book, I have like 25 or 26 5-star reviews on Amazon. So it's very close to my heart because it's always good to write something. If I never sold one book, just writing it was such a catharsis for me. But the fact that people are gaining knowledge, information, and strength from it is really, a prize I could never think I would get.
Amazing, so inspiring. Teenage years are an exciting and overwhelming time in one's life. To any teens listening us to today, Marc, any words of wisdom before they cross that bridge to young adulthood?
I think that you are who your friends are, and I think that if you're hanging out, emailing, texting, IMing, Snapchatting with people who are not nice, not kind to others, not respectful to themselves or other people, I think you need to move away from that. I think peer pressure, it's very easy to say just say no, but that was in the 70s. You can't just say no now. You have to live with no. You have to, be comfortable with who you are, be comfortable in your own skin, and that's not easy because everybody wants to be popular, nobody wants to be insulted or bullied, but you have to find your place and you have to set a goal. Where do I want to be in 10 years? And that question in the olden days was, oh, poof, in 10 years I'll be an attorney, I'll be this, I'll be that. But the question that really has to be asked is, what are you going to do the next 10 years, starting today, that will get you where you would like to be in 10 years? It's not about 10 years from now. It's about each year, each day of those 10 years. And that's where the focus has to be. It's very good to have objectives and goals, but then you need a plan.
That's amazing. So specific. Marc, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And people can go to gradesuccess.com for any information. We do a lot of online tutoring, which is live online from anywhere in the world. And they can click on my author site there. My author site is also my name, Marc Hoberman, MarcHoberman.com. So that and gradesuccess.com. And I'm available anytime somebody has a question.
Awesome. And I will put all those links on the show notes. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
And this wraps up our show today. This was episode 142 with Marc Hoberman of Grade Success, Inc. To connect with Marc and sign up for his amazing courses, go to gradesuccess.com. I hope you enjoyed episode number 142 with Marc Hoberman of Grade Success. For another related conversation, rewind the podcast to episode number 38. It was my conversation with Jeff Lakin on the power of mentoring. And tune in soon to hear our next podcast, episode 143, which will be our next tutoring tips series. And to access episode 142 and all of our podcast episodes, you can find them on preppedandpolished.com/podcast, or you can go to soundcloud.com/preppedandpolished. Thank you for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.